Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Hooten here with the Hope Dealer podcast in our Dallas offices at the Hooten Family Healing Center. And today we've got a great show. I've got a lot to get to. First, I want to introduce our guest, Bryce Maxwell, future Dr. Bryce Maxwell. He just won an award. This was amazing. And he got this great shirt as a gift. He won Best Looking and Greatest Chiropractic Student in History that was in school on 9/12/2024. It was amazing. He just for being in school that day, he got the greatest award. In all seriousness, folks, this country, I'm looking at all the data. Most likely, any of you watching this, maybe it's you or somebody you know, our country, Americans as a whole, are getting sicker. Everybody, as they grow up, and this is just statistics, you may be in denial, you may think you're okay, you may think your children are doing okay, but unless you're doing what we tell you to do right now, during this show, you're going to be heading towards disease, and that's just the facts of the matter. You've got to be, A, proactively taking care of yourself, B, taking the right steps, because, you're in school. How much crazy advice is out there,
right?
Just even in the student world. So today we're going to talk, we're going to get to Bryce's story and his mom's story. We're also going to cover some big topics: pain, joint pain and arthritis, those types of pains. And then we're going to get into asthma and breathing problems. So if you have anybody in your family dealing with arthritis or any version of arthritis, from rheumatoid arthritis down to spinal stenosis, those type of things, if you have any type of chronic pain, like in your back or something that may not be right on your spine. I know Bryce is going to talk about this a little bit. And then we're going to get into asthma and breathing, which is a personal story of mine. And we've got a lot of testimonies about that. So just this morning, yesterday. Yesterday. This sweet lady comes in, and that was, today's a Thursday, so this is Wednesday. She came in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And on Monday, she called us up. She was in a panic. She had just been to the doctor, and they wanted to double her blood pressure medicine, and she's got all this pain everywhere in her back and her knee and everything else. So she came in on Monday with this panicked attitude, and she is my age. That's why I'm telling you her story. She's 53 years old and going through this mental torture and this spiritual torture. She'd known me in the past, so she knew there was a way out of it. Thankfully, that was the first thing she did. She left the doctor's office and she called us. So she came in, and by yesterday, her blood pressure was normal with no medication. So Monday she comes in, her blood, like when she went to the doctor, her blood pressure was in 180s, 190s, taking one medication, so we doubled it. Then she came in to see us, and she goes, I don't want to take this stuff, so she's wanting to pull herself off of it. And I said, well, this is what you need to do to your body. And she did those things Monday and Tuesday, and yesterday she was off her medication, blood pressure in the 140s, getting better, and less pain. Shocker. There's a right way to do this, and before you go off and Google, Dr. Google, search all this crazy things out there to do, from fad diets to acupuncture to some weird massage things to the real hokey stuff. In our world, in our profession, we see some, whatever witchcraft looks like, we've seen it. I've had people talk to my feet and ask my feet questions thinking they were going to help me get healthy. I'm not joking. I see our podcast guys are kind of giggling. She was serious as she could be. Some of that stuff, some of this outlandish type things, there may be some effectiveness to it. I don't know. But there are some real concrete things you can do. And we have evidence in the office. We have chiropractic research all over the place. There's a way to go about getting healthy, and we're going to get into that. So Bryce, welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. First of all, how far along in school are you?
I'm in my 5th trimester, so I'm about halfway through it now.
Yeah. Ooh, we're in the weeds. Okay. You have a chiropractic story, so briefly tell everybody what got you into chiropractic, what got you interested.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say thank you for allowing me to be out here. But yeah, so how I got into it was just kind of normal story, played football, baseball, that sort of thing all growing up. Started getting injured, and then my mom actually had already been going to a chiropractor. So my family was kind of introduced to it, and they were like, hey, you got back pain, go see a chiropractor. So did that, started seeing him, And I've always not enjoyed school. So naturally, I keep going to him because he's giving me doctor's notes. So he gives me doctor's notes.
You mean you hated going to high school?
Yes, yeah. No, I love chiropractic school, yeah.
So you were skipping school?
Yeah, big time. And I kept staying in his office asking him questions like, well, how'd you pop my ear? And what does that do? And what does this do? And eventually he sat me down and he's like, all right, Bryce, like, you just got to do this. I went to Parker, go there. So fast forward, and now I'm in love with the profession. So
great. So when you were, so did you feel better when you were getting adjusted at least?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, thank God.
100%.
And I've seen a lot of that where a lot of athletes, and if you follow some of these big time professionals, they'll have their own personal chiropractor travel with them. I know I got asked to travel with a golfer, an LPGA Tour Pro. This is many years ago. The only reason I didn't, because how fun would that be to go around the country, adjusting her and probably her friends at the LPGA Tour. But I had this place, which is full of 500-600 people that I'm not going to abandon them. But some people actually do that, and I don't blame them. I mean, it would prolong their sports career. If you have an athlete, or if you're an athlete, if you start getting adjusted, you'll watch your body perform better. From cardiovascular function to muscle function to joint, and like you said, not just recovery from pain, but what about prevention?
Right.
Like if we could go back and play football and baseball and soccer, the real sport, and get adjusted beforehand, before you go out there, boy, I mean, your performance is through the roof, and then do it again after to recover. Man, what a dream that would be.
Yeah.
Well, that's I've never heard somebody getting into chiropractic because they wanted to skip high school, but that's as great a reason as any.
Yep.
And I'm glad you're doing it. Well, so tell everybody your mom's story. Try to, in a nutshell, if you will.
Yeah, sure.
And from the perspective, you being one of her children, go to the point where that day that she got sick, and just a brief background, his mom was a chef, and a good one, and she had 2 restaurants and 2 just booming. Just talking to her, I can imagine she was like queen bee of chefs, and just her eccentric personality is just beautiful. People just gravitate just to hear her, let alone eat the food. So I can only imagine what she was like as a mom, probably very active.
Yeah.
Even though she's working all these hours in the restaurant. I can see all of you guys were close. And then one day, boom, what happens?
Yeah, so it kind of started off where she started complaining, losing feeling in her legs. And it just kind of like she would go weak, and we would just sit her down and she'd be okay. And we did that for a while. It first arose with her gallbladder. She got that removed, and we just kind of forgot about it. And it started off where she was throwing up like every day. She was just throwing up. Like.
Okay, so everything's going along fine, and she just starts throwing up.
She's throwing up every single day. Like, she can't get food down. She can't eat like whole foods. Like, if she ate chicken, she'd throw up. And so that's where we started kind of getting some red flags, and then the weakness like started getting more consistent. And then one day she's walking with my brother, and she kind of like collapses and is able to get back up. And she's like, whoa, like that was kind of scary. And then the day that she actually ended up going to the hospital is she was leaving the house because she was feeling so weak. And she collapsed before she can even get to the car. And I was working when that happened, so I got off of work and I met her at the ER.
How old were you?
This was a year or 2 ago. Whenever she got admitted to the hospital. So like 20, 21.
So you're 20, 21. So before you were in chiropractic school, or
like right about to get into chiropractic school. Yeah.
So she's going to a chiropractor, and all this happening.
I think at that time, she was. She went and saw him. He was the first person to say she needed to go to the emergency room.
So the reason I bring that up is that not all chiropractors are the same.
Yeah, 100%.
So and just pause on the story real quick. You've got some chiropractors just trying to treat a symptom.
Right.
So and I would imagine that's what that was like. And it's not too dissimilar from going to the doctor, because going to the doctor, they yank her gallbladder out trying to treat a symptom. Go to the chiropractor that's treating symptoms, you're not really getting to the root cause. You're essentially just trying to cover up the pain so the person feels like they're okay. That's not what we do. So we're going to get into how we work in a second. But it's understandable. Most people don't know there's a difference. So they wind up going to a place like, one of these in-the-box things that's only $20 a month or whatever, or they could just go to one on their insurance that is not the same. So she gets sick, it's throwing up everywhere, collapsing, that kind of thing. You meet her at the ER, and what did they do?
They admit her in, they put a bunch of tubes in her, started doping her up, putting her on, she was having night terrors, so they were just like, oh, let's just give her antidepressants, let's give her this, let's give her that. And I remember this is kind of like whenever I started seeing, this ain't right. And I was like, what's this medication for? This one's for that medication, and this one's to help with that one and balance this out. And they were giving her blood pressure medication because she has low blood pressure, but it's not a scary low blood pressure. It's just her normal her whole life. And then they've got her.
So they were giving her something to try and raise it.
Right, just to raise it. And it's like, what are we?
That is a terrifying drug, by the way.
Right. And then they're going back and forth on diagnosis. Oh, it's this, it's that. She's going to pass away, that sort of deal. And then we hop to another hospital, and then she starts getting better. And then eventually they sat me and my sister down. She's like, hey, be prepared, she's going to pass away. And then she didn't.
What I think she was saying that they had told her she was going into organ failure.
Cirrhosis. And so she had a bowel obstruction too that they were trying to get out. She couldn't pass anything, so yeah.
Dude, I'm just writing down all these crazy symptoms. You got digestive issues, obviously throwing up.
Yep.
Weakness, collapsing, fainting, night terrors, cirrhosis of the liver, anxiety through the roof. So all these mental drugs.
Sure.
Constipation, bowel obstruction.
Then neuropathy, and then they got her on stuff for that too.
Which is, neuropathy can be pain or numbness.
Right.
Very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Gosh, how did that feel, watching your mom go through that?
Yeah, it was awful. I was in the hospital every day after work, going to see her, and then going back. So it was back and forth every day.
So they told you she was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you and your sister do then?
A lot of prayer, a lot of just enjoy her while she's here, sort of deal. And
so you all sort of accepted what they said.
We started calling family, saying hey, they're saying she's going to pass away.
Well, if you didn't know this, she's still alive, and we did a last episode with her.
Yeah.
So she didn't die.
Yeah.
And y'all got her out of the hospital, and she was in a wheelchair.
Yep.
And just kind of go from there. What did y'all do? What was that like?
Yeah, so she had to relearn how to walk again. Her memory kind of wasn't as great, so it's improved greatly now. But she wouldn't remember what was going on or where she was, and so she wasn't fully aware of what was happening. And she was so drugged up that it was she was kind of getting numbed out to everything. But yeah, she started with a wheelchair, then on a walker, and then slowly but surely she started coming back up. And then the doctors were like, here's where you come in, is I'm in chiropractic school now from her coming back up. And then they're saying, oh, she's pre-stroke, she needs to come in, all this sort of deal. And I went, all right, that's enough. We're going to see Dr. Hooten because he knows what he's doing.
Pre-stroke.
Pre-stroke. Yeah.
Let me say that again for you chiropractors and chiropractic students out there, and anybody that's heard that hogwash about chiropractors causing a stroke. This woman was pre-stroke, and Bryce brought her in to see us because he knows better.
And there's this funny, a buddy of mine at school, he found this study that they did. It is more likely that you die from a vending machine falling over you, on top of you, than it is having a stroke from a chiropractic adjustment.
It's just, I've never heard of one.
Yeah.
I've seen crazy stories out there in the media or whatever. I've been around 24 years. I've been a chiropractor since I was 13 because I knew what I was going to do. Yeah. I've never seen or heard it. And all the adjustments we've done, all the different chiropractors I've known, nobody's ever had a patient stroke out. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. So anyways, pre-stroke, that's scary enough. So now you're kind of teetering on the edge of something bad all the time.
Right.
You bring her in, we x-rayed her, and show her something that not one of these doctors had ever said anything about. Not one chiropractor she'd been to, not one visit, not one doctor, not one surgeon, all these different types of doctors, the cardiovascular doctor, the psychiatrist, the nerve doctor himself, that's like a neurologist would be the one to put her on neuropathy meds, or even a neurosurgeon. You got the constipation doctors, what do you call those, the GI docs, and the whatever they want to call themselves, looking up people's, you know what, the liver doctor. Nobody looking at her spine.
No.
So I knew just from experience her spine was going to be a train wreck. So took an x-ray of her neck, and right in the middle of her neck, her entire spinal cord was getting blocked, like 50%. So imagine cutting off your spine right there. Everything stops below that. In fact, you would die. You can decapitate yourself and live. So her spinal cord was getting squished more than 50%. So think about that for a second. And she didn't say anything to me about neck pain. All this stuff she went through, she never said a word to me about neck pain. I don't know if she had complained to y'all before. But there it was, right on her x-rays. Her spine wasn't sitting properly. It was bent over backwards. And obviously cutting off everything from her brain getting to her body. And that's where we started. You can't start anywhere else if you don't get your spine flowing. So we did our thing. You've probably seen, if you haven't gone to our Instagram channel, I would highly encourage you to go do that and say, oh my gosh, did he really just do that to somebody? Well, and at the time, her biggest thing was she couldn't feel her hands. There was other parts, her shoulders and kneecaps and everything she couldn't feel, but this was like a big deal. She couldn't be a chef. She was cutting herself and burning herself. So I did my thing, and then I did that pull that you see, that life-changing adjustment. And then while she's laying on the table, were you here for that one?
I have a video of it too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's videoing. And what did she do?
She just started immediately bawling.
Starts crying, and then what happens?
Starts picking up her fingers, and she can start feeling her fingers again.
Her hands woke up on the table.
Yeah.
Now, Bryce, you know this. Who fixed her hands?
God did.
God did. And even if you want to connect those dots, because obviously God is omnipresent, He knows everything. He can do whatever He wants. But He gave His mom, Erin, the power to heal. That power was physically blocked by the bones in her neck, probably from being a chef for 1,000 years, looking down at everything. So we adjusted her, got her stretching right, and now her hands are slowly like regaining full function. I mean, over time, this whole thing is coming back. But you know what? I don't think she's dealing with any of this anymore. Is she on any medication?
She might be taking like one right now, but she was on like probably 15 to 20.
I'll ask her. I know she's off most of it, but all this stuff is going to get better.
Yeah.
Even the liver, her cirrhosis, they even tell you, so that's a permanent thing. You'll have that forever. No. Your liver will regenerate in as quickly as 3 months. If you're dealing with something like that, some unexplained phenomenon, this weird list of things, if you got medication after medication, neuropathy, constipation, all this stuff, you need to get to a chiropractor that specializes in flow.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's very few of us. I know he's going to be one. He's part of a student group, and they want you on a plan where you're constantly taking care of your spine and you watch your body regenerate whole all the time. Like you vibrate at such a different level.
But here's the crazy thing is that if I went to school and I showed this list to any of my professors, they would tell me not to touch her and to send her out to everybody that she was already sent out to. I was actually in class. I was in an adjusting class the other day, and my professor came up. I was talking with a group of guys, and he was like, man, that distraction thing, that Y strap is just ridiculous. I mean, you could rip somebody's head off with that thing. And my mom's already been here to Dr. Hooten's, and I have that story that he told earlier in the podcast. And I was like, well, hey, here's the thing. I've got this chiropractor that my mom goes to. He sees about 600 to 800 people a week. And he did that on my mom, and she hadn't felt her hands in about over a year. And now she's got feeling back in her hands, and she's doing better than ever. And you know what he said?
What?
He went, oh, well, that requires like a full workup, and like you got to really make sure and take x-rays. And I was like, all right, okay.
It's just, unfortunately, when you get to actual somebody really healing,
right.
Like I said, there are rules you have to follow. The one everybody knows about, you have to eat right. But this spine thing just sneaks under the radar. You could be eating perfect, whatever that looks like. You could have the greatest diet known to man. But if your spine isn't flowing, you are still going down, baby. Your spine is in charge. It's like the power supply to all the electrical parts in your body. If you flip a light switch off, the lights go off. It's the same thing with your brain. You flip the brain off, everything stops. So consequently, professors in school, especially the medical system, they have capitalized on teaching people how to treat symptoms, and then they pay people to treat symptoms, and it has nothing to do with actually getting to the cause. So the professors even at chiropractic schools are caught in that mindset because it's like propaganda. And this all started back in World War II. So a lot of you have never heard or never known a time where there wasn't drug commercials. Do you know that's illegal in almost every other country on the planet to have a drug commercial? Us and New Zealand are the only two countries on the planet where drug companies can actually advertise directly to the person. And because of that, our babies, our children, more than half of the students in the United States walking through the doors of elementary school are taking some type of mental drug. Think about that for a second. Whether it's ADD or anxiety, and some of them are taking 2 or 3. And it only gets worse in high school. So the propaganda machine, the drug industry wants you to get your kids on that. And then, by the way, when things start going wrong, like in Bryce's mom, you go right into the system. It's insane. You got to get out of the system. You got to get out of that mindset. If you're dealing with something, just find us. We've got a network, and he's going to have a network of people around the country that do the kind of work we do, where you start with the spine and then get into nutrition. And obviously there's exercise components, there's stress components, but you start with those first 2 things. Those are going to be the top priority to your body. If you could just get those 2 things working, you'll see your body flourish and grow. Even if it's really bad, like where Erin was, they were telling her she's going to die. If you get adjusted properly, your body won't have a choice but to at least try to get better and better. So I want to wrap this show up with just asking you two questions. So somebody comes in with a joint pain. Let's say it's neck pain and they've got shoulder pain. And you tell them you have subluxation in your spine, which is our word for a kink in your spine. What does a subluxation do? And I'm putting him on the spot here. What is a subluxation? How would you describe it? And what does it do? And you have 1 minute to answer.
Okay, subluxation literally means sub is less than, luxation is dislocation. So it's a less than dislocation. So it's a partial dislocation in your spine. And essentially all it is like your bone is partially misplaced in what it should be, putting pressure on the nerves in our nervous system, thereby interfering with our communication within our brain to our body.
So what is the result of subluxation?
Oh, disease.
Okay, so that's our term for death.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to put it. Because if you cut off a nerve, things die. If you're choking the nerves, it's dying. So you're in a state of dis-ease. Great answer. Okay, so how would you describe what happens when somebody gets a proper adjustment?
Yes.
Go for it.
Proper meaning specific, not just a see you later, no intention behind it, or understanding what we're doing.
Well, okay. I'm glad we're having this talk.
Yeah.
So when I say proper, it would be more the intent.
Yes, 100%.
So when somebody has the right intention of being the chiropractor and they adjust somebody, what happens?
Healing happens.
So describe the physical nature of it.
Yeah. Physically, we're putting the bone back in its natural state where the body wants it to be, and then it's allowing for our brain to communicate more efficiently with our body, which our body has this crazy intelligence where we can go from 2 cells as a baby to over trillions of cells, knowing exactly where you get a cut in your finger, just the right amount to put there to heal it without you even knowing it. So when we adjust somebody, your body does what it naturally knows how to do. Like just with cancer, like all these pictures on the wall over here, Crohn's disease, asthma, gone. It's not a miracle that we put our body back in line and allow the brain to do what it wants and how God made us, that things just get better. And it's just like, it's a miracle it's placebo, but your body doesn't think it is. God doesn't think it is. This just happens.
Oh man, I've heard people say chiropractic is a placebo. Okay, so I want to further your ninja skills right now.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, so in my spine, and we're going to talk about this in the next episode. We're going to get into breathing and asthma. I had like the worst form of breathing diseases out there. It was called Goodpasture syndrome, and I wasn't going to live to 40. This whole thing, my spine was destroyed. It was crooked like a question mark from birth. Something happened at the birth process where they twisted me and pulled me out. Obviously, I've lived past 40. I'm 53, doing fantastic. I haven't been on a drug for anything like that since I was 13 when I first started getting adjusted. My spine still looks bad on x-rays. So this idea that we can put a bone back into place, and now I'm speaking to chiropractic students and anybody actually going to a chiropractor, it's too shallow thinking. In fact, you pointed to somebody up there with cancer. Her spine is a train wreck on x-rays. We can't get it to look pretty. So instead of focusing on trying to put a bone in place, we look at it, and we would walk you through x-rays on this. We look at it and say, okay, your bones are sitting there, out of place, and smashing your spine. You can't leave that pressure there. So we're going to relieve that pressure. We're going to have you stretch a certain way to keep the pressure off. Because I tried everything to straighten my spine up. I've been working on it for 40 years. I've had people promise me things, and then I went through all the different technique courses and everything. I sat in a scoliosis chair for 30 minutes, and I was throwing up. We had it crank so hard. Have you ever seen one of those?
No.
In this 30-degree curve down there that I had as a kid, it did straighten up when I was a kid, but right now it's sitting there at 12 degrees. As long as I get adjusted regularly, as long as I do the exercises regularly, my spine flows through there, and I have no trouble. So a proper way to think, and I've talked to a bunch of your buddies that have already graduated, I said, you need to change your language, so let's get your spine flowing instead of trying to put a bone back in. So for all you chiropractors out there that watch this, or students, there's just a little tip for you that I've learned. And look, I'm not perfect. I'm learning stuff all the time. And we actually just came up with what we call, I don't think anybody's ever done this adjustment before, so we're calling it the Hooten adjustment. I'll show you that later.
Let's see it.
But that's the state you want to get in. You're always learning and evolving and really learning how to teach and communicate this properly. So I wanted to put you on the spot with the subluxation and adjustment.
Yeah, come on.
And you did way better than most students that I ever asked. Okay, so let's wrap up this show. Remember, our saying is drugs are bad, God is great,
Yep.
and so are you. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks a lot, buddy. You did great.
Let's go.